podcast. I'm your host, Thomas Shepard. Here's my wife, Carrie. And each and every week, we're diving into some great topics that we trust are going to be a blessing to you and also to your family.
hmm
It's awesome to have one of our first guest speakers on last week. And Andrew Carlson did a fantastic job. We've heard a lot of really great feedback
hmm
on the episode with him. And so tonight, we're really kind of jumping into a brand new subject, some things we've had several people that have asked about. And so thought we would jump on. And that is just some advice for newlyweds.
Yes, it is the month of February, which, as everyone knows, is the love month. It is the month where we celebrate Valentine's Day. So everybody's wearing red and pink and thinking about that day anyway. And yeah, I thought we'd do some topics on dating and marriage and just love in general, kind of those important relationships that no matter what stage you're in, that's a possibility as an adult to have a boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, whatever, even if you're older. Yeah, so it's good to get some refreshers and reminders on how to like enjoy that stage of your life.
For sure. There also is this it seems like a real disconnect. We're saying newlyweds, but man, across the board, we are seeing where marriages are in massive trouble today.
hmm
Not just those who have been married a short amount of time, 6 months to a year, but even marriages that have been married for long periods of time. We are finding, even in our smaller circles, there's a lot of people who are ending up in divorce,
Yeah.
maybe even those who are not divorcing, but man, they live as complete strangers in the house.
Mm.
And we just have this epidemic of marriages that are in trouble. Seems like people just really do not know how to, or maybe not ever have the feeling that marriage can be exciting, wonderful, just a gift from God for man and woman, and not just for the first year or not just for your
Mm.
last years when you're retired, but really all the way through.
Yeah.
Marriage can be a lot of joy.
Yeah. And there's just something so special too about going through life with someone and you hit these good times where all of a sudden, you're maybe on a special vacation or a family trip or something, and you just look over the other person and you just have those thoughts of, we've come through it.
Yeah.
We've weathered some storms, and that's such a good feeling. It's a good feeling to think like we didn't give up. We fought for, each other. We fought for our family. We fought for love and for being together through all
Right.
of this. And that is an awesome feeling to have. I do feel sorry for people that don't get to experience that and don't put the work in, because that is such a satisfying feeling. It really is.
Right. Right. I actually did some research before this episode, and um, there is this research that now has gone into why people are getting divorced. And some of that research points back to several of the big reasons. Now, this again is coming from um, sources that would not necessarily be Christian sources, but as a whole in the United States, here's what a lot of the trends are pointing to. First is, which is kind of crazy, but marrying too young.
Mm,
Number two is financial challenges. Number three, which would be an obvious one, but choosing the wrong partner.
hmm
Individuals may rush into marriage without fully understanding their partner's compatibility.
hmm
Number four, which we hear a lot in both realms, is growing apart. And then number five is lack of experience. Younger individuals often have limited life and relationship experience, would lead to challenges in navigating marital issues.
hmm
And so I think you and I would say probably right off is that we don't always agree with, even the age that most would set nowadays, which,
Yeah.
as I read through stats, it's really unbelievable in the last 15 years, last 20 years, how it has changed and people are
hmm
getting married so much older. Um, but definitely the world that we live in, the lack of experience I can see. I
Yeah.
don't necessarily agree with people need to get married when they're older, But we do live in an age where people do not communicate or interact with other humans the way that they used to.
That's true.
We're now in this stage where even our teenagers in our house mostly communicate through text message or via messaging. And
Hmm.
so there is not the young days where you and I grew up and we played with all the other kids in the neighborhood. We were at church events all the time or sports events where there was no phones. So you
Hmm.
interacted, you hung out with, so you had even 20 years ago for you and I, we had so much more experience in
Hmm.
interaction, and a younger generation does not, which this is all me personally. I believe that's why it leads into this. Hey, people are getting divorced because they don't have experience in interaction, communication with other humans, other adults. So they get married, they don't know each other. They don't even know
Yeah.
how to communicate. They don't know how to interact. I mean, you're in the same house. All of a sudden, it's like, I mean, can you text me? I mean, we did so well in our dating, but
Hmm.
they get married, and now it tends to, man, we just give up. That's it. We've grown apart. That's what we hear all the time. We fell in love and now we've grown apart. And so what we want to do tonight is really focus in on, no matter what stage you're at, but really especially for these young couples that are married, and you ask any church member nowadays, we are seeing young couples. It is an epidemic of young people getting married and within a year divorcing. They're
Hmm.
done and or going in for major marital counseling.
Yeah.
And so we've got to stop this trend, and we've got to get involved, and we need to speak up on
Hmm.
this subject. And
Absolutely.
go ahead.
Yeah, I was actually thinking a lot of that while you were saying that, just I think if there was one recommendation I would give any college student out there who wants to be married and, have a family, this would be amazing for the workplace too, but take some lessons online. Immediately, I think of the masterclass website. That's a really good one, but take
Mhm.
communication lessons, especially if you grew up in a family who did the cold shoulder and they never worked out issues or resolved problems face to face. If they just let stuff go and then they show up at the next family thing and pretend like everything's fine, um, you can get so far on that with your cousins and your aunts and uncles and even your parents. But when you're married, you have to learn how to communicate. And so there's so many classes online, even for free.
That's true.
You can look up so many things about just basic communications or, um, you know, helpful things with being able to just have confrontation with someone in a healthy way.
And I think since we're on that subject, just even simple interaction.
Yeah.
I grew up in the South, so this was not as big a deal. But now, as Carrie and I are ministering in the Midwest, interaction with people is a lot less here. People really are okay with just not talking. I'll go
Yeah.
to church. I'll come into a life stage group. I'll sit in a corner. I just won't talk. I won't communicate. I won't. Well,
Yes.
let me tell you, that will absolutely carry itself over into your marriage as
Yes.
well. And so, yes, take classes and communicate, but then put that into practice. And when
Yes.
you're in places, talk to other people. And
Hmm.
that's the best practice you can get. Interact with other people.
There's so much I love about this section of the country. It's a wonderful place to live, but it's definitely not the best place for communicators. People
Mm,
can be very difficult to talk to,
right.
and they are not great conversationalists as a whole.
Mm,
And so I think that is kind of the personality of maybe this area, and I don't speak of just our city. I'm talking about states like Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, kind of these Midwestern states. People are more reserved.
right.
They're not very emotional people, and they definitely don't communicate or handle confrontation easily.
Right.
And so
Right.
that's definitely something that it's going to come into your marriage. The problem with marriage is like you live together. If you don't communicate, that's going to be 90% of the problems
Right.
that come up. So there's so many resources now. I
Yeah.
mean, I tell people all the time, there's really no excuse to not get help in this culture.
Right.
There are therapy sessions online, classes, like courses, anything you want at your fingertips. So take advantage of it. Don't be embarrassed. I tell Tommy all the time, like, it'd be great if you and I do a sales class together. So no matter who you work for, that will help you and, different things with the girls. So take advantage, get online and find some help, or even just approach someone that is a good communicator and
Yeah.
say, hey, you're super easy to talk to. Give me some pointers on how to open up and be vulnerable,
Right.
you know?
If you had to rate the
Oh,
communication
no.
and, and or interaction and communication for you and I, what rating?
Why
One
are
to
you
one
asking
ten.
this?
One to 10. What would you
Am I
give it?
rating you
Yes.
or me?
No, me. I know what you're going to say for you.
Me, 10
Go.
out of 10.
Yeah, exactly right.
You probably wish I communicated a little less.
What? No, for real. What would you give me? Interaction, communication.
Interaction. What is interaction? Just like
Yeah, maybe with others
spending
even.
time.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, interaction. You're a 10 out of 10, 12 out of 10. You are great at interacting. You are not an awkward person at all. I think you're very good at that.
Thanks, babe.
Yeah. Our personal communication.
Why? Oh, wow. Why is this so funny? Personal why?
Okay,
Go
like
ahead.
our marriage
Yes,
communication.
go for it.
You're good. Like maybe
No, you have.
8.5.
You're being nice. Really? You'd give me an 8.5?
Okay, let me put it
I'm
this
writing
way.
this down right now. Everyone,
Stop
you
writing.
heard it on the Ford podcast.
When you're good,
Okay.
like when you're in it, you are great.
Okay.
But if you get something in your craw that upsets you, or you feel like I've like
Oh, my
attacked you,
word.
you will shut down like that.
Yeah,
And you
sure.
know that about yourself.
I do.
Yeah, and then it's like days where I'm like, are you good yet?
It is not days.
It's pretty
Y'all-
much weeks.
Wow.
I'm just kidding.
You know what? You finish this episode all by yourself.
See?
I'm going to clam up
See?
over here and be a little, or what'd you say?
Clammy
Is it my
clam.
craw?
That's a saying. You get
It is,
something
yeah, I
stuck
get
in
it.
your craw. I don't know what the craw is, but
I don't either. I
there's
don't want to
something
Google it
stuck
either.
oh my word. Now you have to rate me, and I'm probably exactly opposite.
Yeah, you're a 1 and a 2. That's all. Okay,
Oh,
moving on.
wow. Nothing
No,
was wrong with your communication there.
interaction, I think, yeah. Yeah, you do great. I think in both, honestly, you do really well. Probably even communicating, you're better than I am. So I would
Number.
say 10. Interaction,
I'm probably a little lower than
probably
you.
a little lower. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's okay. I'm a pastor.
Yeah, that's your
I gotta
calling.
meet. Yeah, it's giving hospitality. I'm always moving and going and
Yeah.
make sure everybody's okay. Reading the room. You know,
You're
I'm
very
a
good
people
at
watcher.
that. That is your
so,
talent for sure.
Yeah.
And
But I
I
don't
do
think
love
either one of us are horrible.
right. No, I do interact with people. I'm just more comfortable sitting down with someone and like talking for 10 or 15 minutes.
Right.
I don't do well with short term.
No, you don't.
Yeah, I don't
Right.
like a quick the awkward like small talk.
Right.
Yeah, I don't do well with small talk. I'll go
Yeah,
deep.
you don't. You don't. Yeah.
I'm like, tell me about your life. What's going on?
Even at church, Carrie is very much, she will find people that need help and she'll sit there and walk through after service for an hour.
Yeah.
I'm after service, I've hit 60 people, 70 people.
And I'm on
a
my number
pinball. Yeah,
3
I'll-
person.
right. I'll
Yeah.
bounce around.
Yeah.
I'm master at small talk. Make sure you're okay. Good.
Yes.
Hitting people who are visiting. Yeah. We make a
Yes.
good team at that.
We do.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it
Because
works
I'll
out
get
well.
in the van and say, we really need to get with so and so. They're really struggling. And you
Right.
would have never known that. But then everyone knows you. You know, I'll
Right.
come up to someone and say, hey, is it your first time? No, I've been coming for a month. Oh, welcome.
Cool to see you. Oh,
Great to have
that's
you.
great. Yeah.
Because I don't get around as much as
That's
you
true.
do. So
That's
yeah,
true.
Team Shepherd. So we've kind of covered communication a ton. Would you say that's the most important newlywed advice? Like someone's getting married, would you say getting communication right is like
yes, for sure.
it?
We might as well hit it. Communication definitely is key. You have to learn how to early on learn how to communicate clearly and make sure that you are listening well.
Yeah.
Don't assume at all. Carrie and I, when we teach at couples conferences, we say it often. Don't assume that the spouse can read your mind.
Yeah.
And really express expectations very openly.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure that you are walking through. You're practicing conflict resolution, and you are make sure you're giving a lot of patience. But there are oftentimes, Carrie and I are in marriage counseling, giving marriage counseling, and communication always comes up. He doesn't
Mhm.
listen. She doesn't listen. You don't hear me. I'll have a lady who will run through a whole line of this, and I'll ask the man sitting there, "Have you ever heard this?" "No, I've never heard this."
Yeah.
And then she'll say, "I have said this 1,000 times." It's just all communication
Mhm.
is so off. And so, if there is one thing that you never master, you are just always wanting and willing to grow in,
Yeah.
that would be communication.
I love
Definitely,
that.
care. I would say it is key for
I
sure.
think that's the biggest thing too. I think something that goes along with that, and I wish I could just tell every single man getting married this, but engaging in your life. Men so often will get married, and after the first kid or two, um, they will not continue engaging in their life.
Mhm.
They let their wife handle the finances, they let their wife handle the kids, they let the wife handle any kind of social life, and all they do is work. And she's handling the cleaning. I'm going to puff you up for a minute and like make you feel really good. So prepare.
Well, you owe it to
I
me,
do,
Miss
probably.
8.5.
Hey, that was pretty high. Even,
It
I mean,
was. It
hey.
was all right. I'll
Um,
take it.
but they miss the boat on engaging. Like, this is your life. You
Mhm.
chose this woman. You chose to have children. You chose to have a family, and then they stop engaging. And I think, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe their mindset is, I work, especially if the wife stays home. I do all this for the family. I provide for the family. I should be able to come home and sit and watch the game, and that's all I have to do the rest of the day.
Right,
And
right.
I get that to a certain extent. Like, I know if you're the breadwinner, yeah, like, you've done a huge part, but that doesn't give an excuse to opt out of the rest of your life.
Mm.
Like, you have to engage with your children. I mean, I remember when the kids were little, sometimes you would get home in time to put them to bed, but you did the bedtime.
Mm.
You would walk through the door and only have an hour before they were going to bed, but you in that hour made up so much ground.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, you would just take them and you would spend time. You'd read them a book, or play a game, or just spend time with the kids at bedtime. And for me, that was life.
Mm.
It was very important because it was another adult engaging with them and filling that need in our family.
Yeah.
And so even if you only have an hour, use it. I think that's just so important. It doesn't apply just to, if you have children, but even if you come home and you have your wife and you haven't seen each other all day, engage,
Right. Right.
talk, help with dinner, help with cleanup, ask, do you want to go on a walk? Should we go grab a coffee, or, whatever? Like, make yourself a part of your home life.
That's good. It's good. I love it. I think probably too is really making sure that especially when you're just married, excuse me, you prioritize your marriage,
Mm-hmm.
that you are making time for each other, even in busy seasons. Because in the first year or two, you're really making an impression on your spouse that can last for decades.
Mm.
And a lot of people will remember 10 years ago when you didn't have time for me and you didn't give in. And especially for men listening, if you're hearing this, women, they're not keeping a score, but they definitely remember a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because a woman you can push her so far, but once you push her far enough, she's not coming back. And a lot of times men will, in those first couple of years of marriage, they check out.
Mm.
They do not prioritize their marriage, their dating life. Oh, we got married, we're good. And a lot of times even men begin to let themselves go. They stop taking care of themselves. So we're
Mm-hmm.
married now, and I don't believe in divorce, so we're fine. And women really will remember that
Yeah.
until finally a woman is pushed to where, hey, look, we're giving up on this. We're going to separate, or many will say, I'm going to divorce. We've grown apart. And then the man steps up like, oh, okay, well, now I'm going to fix this. And
Yeah.
okay, yeah, now I'm there. And well, too bad it's too late. Like
Right.
now you're trying to prioritize because your feet has been put to the fire. And a woman can see right through that as well. They
Yeah.
know it's fake. I don't want to lose my marriage. So now okay, fine. I'll go get counseling. Well, too late. You did not prioritize it. You've got to
Yes.
make sure that in the beginning of your marriage, you are making time for each other.
Mm-hmm.
Set healthy boundaries.
Mhm.
Honey, you can speak into this in a minute, but for the men, with work, with friends, with extended family, and with sports, even,
Mm.
you have got to set boundaries. In those first 5 years of marriage, the wife needs to know that she is number one. She
Mm.
needs to know he has prioritized me over fantasy football, over his golf buddies, over. I know this sounds crazy, but there are a lot of guys that just eat and breathe still video games. And how many times have we had to
Yeah.
give marriage advice on, dude, you have got to hang up the Xbox or the
Yeah.
PlayStation or your computer games? Like, I know it sounds crazy, but Fortnite has literally destroyed marriages.
Wow.
And it's because, guys, you did not prioritize your time with the woman that God has gifted you with.
Mhm.
You said, I do, for better, for worse, for richer, for poor, and you didn't mean it. You literally lied.
Mm.
You have to make sure that you are prioritizing. Don't be a workaholic. How many times have we heard?
Yeah.
And again, I'm speaking just to the men. But men, like, well, she's not thankful. I've got to work a lot to give her the house that she has and the car she drives and the
Mhm.
vacation she takes. I understand that and I realize that, but she would rather have you than that vacation. She would
Absolutely.
rather have you than the car she drives.
Mhm.
She may say otherwise, but you have fantasized these thoughts and you are addicted to your work
Yeah.
and you have got to break away. Make sure you make that time. I had an older preacher tell me once, look, you can have another ministry, but you cannot have another family.
Mhm.
And you can work yourself into the ground, but you will lose your wife and you will lose your family.
Yeah.
And I didn't sit there all puffed up, oh, bless God, I'm a workaholic and I haven't taken a vacation in 3 years. I just thought, he's right.
Yeah.
He's right.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop and I'm going to prioritize my marriage, my family. God is first, but my wife is second.
Yeah.
And after my wife is my kids. And in that order, every single time.
I love it. And you have been a great example of that. Another thing, too, for newlyweds specifically is to manage your finances together. Um, this is funny that I got this point to
I'm
discuss
actually
because
did not put that in your column, but if you want to go for it, go for
I
it.
literally don't even know how much money you make. If you held a gun to my head, I'd have to guess. I don't know. But I will say this.
If you want to go to the next one, I can do that one if you want.
Well, I'll just say from my point of view.
Yeah, I would like to hear this. I mean, no, I'm
Okay.
joking around.
When we first got married, I did our finances for a while. Do you remember that? For like a year, I did.
Our finances?
Yes,
Oh, okay. I do not remember that.
honey.
Okay. Yeah, cool.
In our little duplex.
How'd you do?
Great.
All right. Awesome.
We both worked, remember? I worked at the hospital.
Yeah. Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, I did them for a little bit.
Yeah.
But of course, back then, I mean,
When we
we
had
barely-
that little black book and you would fill in what we were spending and
Yeah.
what was going on. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm sorry.
because
Yeah,
I
do
was
remember
coming
that.
out of college, so I had managed and paid for my own schooling. Do you
Right.
remember this?
I do remember all this.
See, I don't get
yes.
enough credit, but I did. I managed my own finances, and then when we got engaged, we started helping each other and talking about finances. And your dad was a big help during that time as well. So I did them for the first like year, but of course, we had like 3 bills. I mean, it was nothing.
Right. Yeah.
But he took over after that. For us, what has worked is having one person do it. That's more his gift and his talent. He has learned a lot from his dad. His dad's really good with finances. And so I just recognized that early on that that's more of your brain space. And I don't care about it. I'm not one I'll do it if I had to,
Sure.
but I'm not like, oh, let me have the books. I'm good with numbers. And I don't care about it. So
Right.
He's taken over, and it's been that way for, almost 19 years now. And that's worked really well for us.
Yeah.
But you also don't leave me out, or you don't exclude me. So
Right.
I'm not just this little like, oh, do we have any money? Can I buy this? Like, it's not like that.
Right.
He's very good about informing me, okay, here's a budget. Here's what we're looking at for expenditures in this area. And we're both kept aware of what's going on. And it's been a blessing for me because it's not my talent. But I think it's also been better for you that there's not tension there.
Right.
Like,
Right.
because you deal with it so well, you know that I trust you, and whatever you say needs to happen. Okay. You
Right.
know, last year we cut out a family vacation that we had taken several years in a row, but for other things and missions trips and whatever,
Right.
he said, we're going to skip that vacation in September. And you know that I trusted you 1,000% with that. Even though we would have liked to go, it was like, okay, well, that's this year. We'll plan another one next
Yeah.
time, you know? And so I'm not saying that's what everyone should or has to do, but for us as newlyweds starting out, aces in their places
Yeah.
was like, that's what you're good at. So let you have it.
And I think it feeds right back into communication as well.
Right.
Where you are communicating, it's not just that I handle it, we communicate very well in it.
Right.
So you never want your marriage to be a blame game.
Yeah.
Oh wow, we maxed out a credit card. This is your fault. Well, then somebody wasn't communicating well
Right.
to let the other person know, hey, we need to cut back on this, or hey, we've got a tough week, or we want to give more towards this, charitable expense, whatever the case might be.
Right.
It all feeds right back into, look, you've got to communicate with each other, even though I take care of our finances now. And it's still, even though you may not know what I make or know the ins and outs of our money and paying bills, it's not that you're clueless.
Right.
There absolutely are those times that we're talking through and you're like, hey, can we afford to do this for the kids? I'm like, yeah, this would be great, but hey, we need to be careful on this because we're saving up for.
Yes.
And it's never an argument.
No.
When is the last time? I bet it's been decades since we have ever argued about money.
Yeah, I can't even remember.
No, because it's not that we've mastered it, but we have grown in our communication once
Yes.
again to be able to say, hey, look, here's what we need. Here's what we do. I love that you said aces in their places. Make sure everybody knows their seat on the bus. Mine might be taking care of it. But then again, I do zero grocery shopping. I do zero clothes shopping. Even a lot of prep for our vacations, you do most of it. So it's just, your place, I know my place, and they both work together.
Yes.
Communication is great in that area.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's one of the biggest victories we've ever had in our marriage is
It's been awesome.
how often we hear people that argue about money and we're
All the
like,
time.
oh yeah, I forgot that's a thing, but
All the
that's
time.
definitely something in the
Yeah.
beginning.
Work on it
we
early.
really, yeah.
Nail it down early.
Yes.
I think the last thing we have time for, Care, is just making sure that you keep the romance alive. And a lot of times you date, then you get married, and for some reason in the circles we grew up in, then it was over.
Yeah.
Then it's that old fashioned, you let yourself go, and it's just kind of, well, we just kind of, we get along and we make marriage work. It's so sad when couples are giving or feeding into a younger generation that marriage is old and boring and it's horrible because it's
Right.
the actual opposite. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But you have to keep that romance alive. You must continue to date each other. And I would say we've led into this in several episodes before, but make sure you are scheduling date nights out. And let me just talk for a second into, maybe you're a little bit newlywed, you're in the first 3, 4, 5 years of marriage, you do have young kids now. This is a lot of times where you will allow, if you're not careful, bitterness and envy sneak in your relationship.
Right.
Because you hear a podcast like this, you're like, oh, okay, well, the shepherd said that we're supposed to have a date night, but we have no one to watch the kids. We don't have money to get babysitters. And it's just this, once again, you're upset. And so let me just say this, dating each other does not have to be this massive night out at the movies and then stopping in to Crumble Cookie. And then after that, you're taking a walk in the park. And then after that, it's sitting under the moonlight. And then it was a perfect Hallmark date. Don't let that ruin your date night. Carrie and I date each other all the time.
Yeah.
It is taking time that you have set aside for each other.
Yeah.
We will take a date night and literally go on a walk.
Yep.
And we had the most wonderful time talking, flirting, laughing, talking about life. We will take date nights, and date nights for us sometimes, or for the last 10 years with kids in sports and raising 5 kids, has been putting them to bed and taking over the big TV. That's what we call our big TV.
Yeah.
And having a date night right there.
Yeah.
And snuggling on the couch and watching a movie and laughing together. And I think a lot of times what I'm realizing, Care, is that as I'm getting feedback from young adults, they get frustrated because their date night doesn't look like everyone else's.
Mm-hmm.
But let me reassure you, you'll get to that place.
Yeah.
Carrie and I right now, it's like 7 o'clock at night. We literally could leave right now and go wherever we wanted. We have teenagers in the house that could
Mm-hmm.
watch. They've got cell phones. They would be safe. They could put themselves in bed and we could go.
Yeah.
Anybody envious of that? Yeah. But I was at a place where you were too, where I remember thinking, we'll never be over, and how many more diapers, and I'm overwhelmed, and we don't ever get it, 2 nights away, and we don't get to go to couples conferences, and well, now we do.
Mm-hmm.
Love the stage of life you're in,
Yeah.
but don't let that love for each other burn out.
Yeah.
Make sure that that hot passion, that love, that flirtiness that you had for each other, it can continue. Carrie, we've
Mm-hmm.
been married for 18 years.
Almost 19.
Oh, coming up on 19 years. My passion for my wife
Mm-hmm.
is more now than it has ever been. When I
Mm-hmm.
look in her eyes, I am more in love than when we were dating.
Mm-hmm.
Some people called it courting back in the day. Dating than we were then. Like, I love this woman, but
Yeah.
it's because we have actively sought to keep the romance alive between us.
Absolutely. And take advantages of, whatever stage you're in. Remember, it won't last forever,
Right.
and it's okay.
Yeah.
I think I love what you said, that people get jealous of other people, and it's like, stop scrolling through other people's pictures and living their lives. Put your phone down and enjoy what you're doing and the spot that you're at with your family. And it's okay if you're newlyweds and you can't afford to go downtown and eat at St. Elmo's or
Yeah.
Ruth's Chris or something. Do it. It's not
Right.
that we're saying, don't make those times special. Absolutely. Especially if one of you are the more romantic one and you enjoy planning, a 3-step date night, do it while you can. Absolutely. Get those times in. That
Yep.
helps to build the foundation for when you're 3 kids deep and
Right.
your date night is just that everyone's in bed
Right.
and the house is finally quiet. But also, if you're in that stage too, enjoy that your date is on the porch with a bag of popcorn and,
Been there many a time.
laughing at the neighborhood drama. Like,
Right.
it's
Right.
fine. And know that those times will quickly turn over into your teenagers are watching the little ones and you're able to run to Crumble Cookie and walk. And,
Yeah.
like, every stage for us has been different. We've done the fancy, we've done the barely eking it out.
Yeah.
And now we're in kind of the middle stage, and everyone is special and everyone is fine, but it's being content and it's growing together as a couple and understanding that the point is not what kind of date you do or how it's done or who plans it. The point is that you're together and that you're prioritizing one another.
Absolutely.
And that's the special thing. That's the passion. I love that Jordan Peterson, I just saw him on a some kind of podcast, I can't remember, but he said most of our lives are made up from small moments, but yet we live for the big vacations. We live for the,
That's true. We do.
the Diet Coke on the beach and all the kids
Yeah.
are busy and we can finally relax. We live for those moments, but the majority of our lives are just the night to night routine.
That's right.
And if you're miserable
And
in
they're
those,
amazing.
yes, if you're miserable in those normal moments, then the majority of your life is miserable.
Yeah.
But if you make every day count and you live in that moment and appreciate it and you have gratitude and thankfulness, even if you don't have kids yet or you're brand new married or you're looking down the aisle and it's coming, I'm going to be married in a month or whatever. It's make every moment special. Make it feel like I'm happy and I'm thankful for this moment.
Yeah.
And then when you do get on those bigger moments, it's like even better.
Yeah.
Because you haven't been
It's
miserable.
the cream. It's the cherry on top.
Leading up to it. So
That's so awesome.
good stuff.
What was the steakhouse you just said?
St. Elmo's?
No.
Ruth's Chris?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We actually have never been.
I know.
Isn't that funny? Somebody asked me the other
we've been
day,
to so
"Where's
many
Chris?"
good
I
ones.
said, "Oh no, I said we've never been there." Like, what? You have never been? Hey, if you want to sponsor the Ford podcast and take us to Ruth's Chris, we
we
will
will
be
give
in.
a review.
Yeah,
We will also
we'll
mention
tell
you by
who
name.
you are. We'll give you the first 30 seconds of the Ford podcast.
We have been to some really good steakhouses. I
We
don't know
have.
why it just never
It's so
happened that
crazy
we've
that
been
we
there.
never have. That's got to be,
Next up.
yeah, our 19th's coming up.
There
That
we
would
go.
be a really, really good date night, Care.
We just went to Harry
So-
and Izzy's
That
last
was
night.
great. That's downtown Indianapolis.
That was a double date
It
with
was
friends. That was fantastic.
amazing. Then went and
Yeah.
saw the Pacers play.
So
That
fun.
was a lot. That was a great time.
Yeah. See, we got us a fancy date in there.
Come on,
Look
girl.
at us
We're
go.
awesome.
We're
We're
growing
awesome.
up.
Hey, hope you've enjoyed this. If you have any questions or any help, make sure you reach out. And I would say this lastly, since I'm talking about it, don't wait until it's too late to get help. If you're struggling right now, you're listening to this, make sure you reach out.
Yes.
We'll try to get you to somebody that absolutely can help you in any
Mhm.
way, but don't fall for that old, weird advice that was given. You just fake it till you make it, and you're going to be fine and just work through. Make sure you're getting help. Your
Mhm.
marriage can use it. Your marriage can be just a blast, but make sure you're trying to put a couple of these things we've talked about tonight into practice.
I did also, before we close, want to address somebody wrote in and said they want to see my recommendations for devotionals or the ones that I have done.
Oh, yeah, cool.
So maybe coming up, we'll do an
Next
episode
episode.
on book recommendations and walk through what we've
Let's
been
do it.
reading.
Okay.
We've both been back into reading a ton in the last 6 months.
We have.
I have so many good devotionals I want to share with you. So stay tuned. Maybe we can do that next week or the week
Okay.
after and just have some books here. But get ready. That's coming up. Get your pen and paper out because I want to share some amazing and life-changing devotionals that I have been able to read lately.
Good. Keep
Yep.
reading. Keep dating. We'll see you next week.
Have a great week.